Welcome back to the Educated Retirement Show here on KMET. And as promised, we have our repeat offender and one of our best guests ever, and that would be Phil Walker. And Phil Walker, as I say, I'm going to let him talk more than let me talk. So Phil, be sure and put that plug in my mouth when I talk too much. I have the ability to talk too much, I think you know. But, Phil was a financial planner, and then now it works for Finance of America Reverse. And his role is to teach financial planners what they don't already know about the reverse or the HECM, and believe me, many of them don't already know. So with that, let me just defer now to Phil and let him tell you his story again, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you, Jay. I started out many years ago as a financial advisor. Worked for Merrill Lynch for a number of years, also for Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, back when they were Morgan Stanley Smith Barney. They're just Morgan again. And, so I went through both of their extensive training programs that they put all advisors through. Interesting line of work for sure. Guiding people, into retirement, through retirement. Previous to that, had a pretty extensive mortgage background also. And so when the opportunity presented itself to marry the two together, I saw a very unique opportunity to help advisors with this tool that is probably the most misunderstood financial tool in all of financial services. And I can tell you the reason there's so many misconceptions out there. It's because if you go back to the very first reverse mortgage that was ever done in this country, that was in the early 1960s, maybe even the late 1950s, but definitely by the early 1960s. And for the first 3 decades, what we called a reverse mortgage in this country was a product of desperation. It was absolutely a product of last resort. It was exclusively for seniors that were on the verge of losing their homes, and just a very expensive way to, as a last resort, save that home for them. So for 3 decades, that's what the product did. And it wasn't for wealth management clients. It wasn't for, financial planners to help their clients along with. And then in the late 80s, Congress instructed HUD to create something entirely different. And they called it the HECM, the home equity conversion mortgage. And if you notice, they didn't refer to it as a reverse mortgage. They called their new product a home equity conversion mortgage. And it was to provide a means of giving this hard asset of real estate, which is typically the majority of an American's wealth, and give it liquid features so it could be used in a retirement plan. That's the purpose of the reverse mortgage that we have today. It's for retirement planning. But because for the first 3 decades, what we called a reverse mortgage in this country was a totally different purpose, that's just kind of hung on. And even when they rolled it out, and explained what it was, we like to identify, it's human nature, we like to identify things very quickly. And so they saw that, you don't have to make payments ever. You can, but you don't have to. The bank pays you instead of you paying the bank. That's a reverse mortgage, right? Well, those were the only 2 things today's product and the old product have in common. Nothing else is in common. As a matter of fact, that old product doesn't even exist anymore. It hasn't existed for decades. So today, part of what I have to do is educate financial advisors that here are all the misconceptions about the product, and here's where you're really supposed to be using it. And we just finished a study, Jay, and I think you heard on my last webinar me talking about this. We just finished a groundbreaking study, one of the most important discoveries in financial planning, probably since modern portfolio theory of the 1950s. a way to dramatically reduce risk for retirees in the retirement planning while helping their portfolios grow substantially at the same time. And that study is going to be published this December in the Journal of Financial Planning. And just to give you the highlights of it, the findings were, well, let me first tell you the strategy. First of all, anybody with pretty much everyone with less than $2 million in investable assets should have a reverse mortgage line of credit just sitting there at the ready. Everyone. That's finding number one. Okay. Now, how should they use that? Well, there's a number of ways, but probably the most important way is following any year that we have a down market. The next year, you should take your income for the year from that HECM line of credit or jumbo line of credit, either one, and leave your portfolio alone for a year. In other words, don't take a draw from your portfolio. Now, if you're already at the age to where you're having required minimum distributions and you have to take a draw, then all you do is you have your advisor set up a separate account with the same investments as your retirement account. That could be your IRA or your Roth IRA or whatever it is. But just set up a taxable account with the same investments. Take your distribution that year and just deposit it in that other account so the money stays invested. This simple process does two things. Number one, it allows your portfolio to rebound faster from the down market year, much faster, right? Instead of, if you're still drawing money out as it's trying to come back, it's like swimming upstream. So it stops that. It allows it to rebound much faster. As a matter of fact, my webinar that I do for financial advisors on this is called Preparing for the Rebound. And the other thing it does, which is our discovery and our new study, is it dramatically reduces risk at the same time. So it reduces your risk of these market fluctuations. It reduces your risk of what volatility in the markets does to your income in retirement. So there was probably 5 major findings that we published in this. One of those findings is that volatility in the markets prior to retirement isn't that big of a deal, especially if it's way prior to retirement, right? If you're several years before retirement, volatility is not that big of a deal because you have time for it to come back. You have time for your portfolio to rebound. But when you are retired and you're relying on your portfolio for income, volatility is risk because it immediately impacts your income, right? So if we can take volatility, most of it out of the equation and reduce that risk for you, retirement gets a whole lot easier, right? Your portfolio grows much faster. It lasts much longer. The final finding was not only does it grow your portfolio and reduce risk at the same time, but on average, it increases your net worth over your life and retirement by 44%. 44
Wow.
Increase in net worth.
That's great. That's so important for people to know, or to learn, I should say. They got to learn first.
Yep, absolutely. So if your advisor, don't be surprised if your advisor hasn't talked to you about this, because the study doesn't even publish until December, right? It's just going to get out there really next year, early next year, to the advisor world, to the planning world. The Journal of Financial Planning is essentially the Bible of all financial planning. You know, it goes through rigorous peer review before anything gets published. And so this is a really big deal. This is a big deal. And if you are in that category of $2 million investable or less, and you're not using this strategy, you're taking on way too much risk.
And if you have more than $2 million, myself not included, I mean, yes, I'm included in the way less. $10 also includes in that. Uh, yeah, you're talking about a different level of lifestyle, but there's still risk to that lifestyle, even if it's much higher than the 2 million, I assume.
Sure. There's definite applications for people with more wealth. Um, the questions then become, what's your withdrawal rate, right?
Hmm.
The standard safe withdrawal rate that's pretty much been accepted for a long time is 4%. And lately, the last couple of years, there's been some studies on that are really saying because of the increases in longevity, COVID not included, that maybe it should be 3%, right? And while that doesn't sound that bad, going from 4% to 3%, that's actually a 25% reduction.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a quarter difference. And so a lot of people can't take a 25% reduction in income in retirement. Makes this strategy even more important, right? Having that reverse credit line in place so that following down market years, you just switch where you take your income for the year. And yes, for the people doing the math or in their heads, yes, those calculations include paying off the loan, the accumulated interest over time, all that is factored in. And you still come out.
That's great. Yeah. Absolutely. And also, don't forget people's health. And I'm not talking about, and I know you do some great seminars and webinars on using this for healthcare, but just having a problem or worrying about what's happening to your portfolio. Again, my portfolio has pictures in it, not investments, but worrying about money in general is going to shorten your life, like it or not.
Yeah. And I've actually, I on occasion when I'm doing in-person speaking events, I'll go into a little more detail like that during the Q&A and go, look, let's just assume that we're taking a couple that we're worried about having enough money to make it to life expectancy. It's starting to look like they're going to fall short a few years before life expectancy. That stress, that financial stress, will absolutely shorten your life, right? But if you can make this much of a difference and not have to worry, you can make a difference by many years in how long your portfolio lasts, and take that worry, take that stress out of your life. There's a good chance you're going to live longer.
Absolutely. And of course, the longer you live, the more you need the HECM too. So it's kind of it's not a vicious cycle. It's a wonderful cycle.
Yeah, it's just it's like insurance in a way. It's not an insurance policy. Yeah. It's an insurance strategy.
I like that. I hadn't heard that put that way before, but yes, you are absolutely right.
I'll let you use that, Jay.
Thank you. All right. I will. I definitely will. And I use what you say so many times. And like I had said to you yesterday, I take some snippets from the recording of the shows, and I send it to clients also. So yeah, thank you for that. You're really helping. And I don't mean you're just helping me. You're helping the entire country come to grips with what this HECM really is all about, or even the jumbos, what it's all about, and financial health in general. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. I actually have a personal goal to help 1 million Americans make it through retirement without running out of money. And I'll be short by several million that really could benefit from this, because I can tell you that in the planning world, we know some things that are kind of disturbing. One of them is that there's a 70% chance you're going to need some form of long-term care in your life.
Yes.
And at the same time, 70% of the U.S. population falsely believes that their health insurance will pay for that care. And it does not. No. It does not. You've got to have either the money or an insurance policy in place to pay for your long-term care needs. And quite literally in the planning world, it's the second most, definitive thing that is going to happen to you in retirement. Number one is death. Number two, you're going to need some form of long-term care in your life. It could be in-home care, assisted living, nursing home care. One of those things is probably going to happen. So it's got to be in everyone's financial plan. And so that's one thing that we in the advisor world worry about with the general population. And if you have a financial advisor, I'd be shocked if they didn't address this, because it's just part of what we do, right? Is that forward-looking, educating our clients. The other shocking one, I was speaking at a FA Magazine event a few years ago, Financial Advisor Magazine event in Las Vegas at Caesars Palace, and the CEO of Allianz, big insurance company, was also speaking, and they had just done a study analyzing people's perspectives in retirement, and the average American thinks that they can get a 10% average after-tax return on investment throughout their entire life in retirement.
Wow.
And the whole room of financial advisors gasped.
As they should.
That's not realistic. You cannot expect 10% after tax as conservatively as you need to invest, because you can't afford big losses once you retire, right? Once you retire and you are dependent upon that portfolio for income, you can no longer afford big losses. That's why we changed the portfolio, and we reduce the risk, and we bring in, if they're stocks, they're usually income stocks, and we get bonds involved, and we do everything we can to preserve and create income and reduce risk. This strategy with the reverse mortgage is just a withdrawal strategy that you layer on top of all that. You don't have to make any other changes to your retirement plan or your portfolio. You just add this withdrawal strategy, and you get so much more risk taken out of your retirement. It's astounding.
Wow. And we just need more people and more financial planners to understand that. And with help from people like yourself, we're getting there.
Well, I spoke about this last October at the Financial Planning Association's national conference. I'm doing a recorded presentation for them for this year's conference, so they'll get it again. And these are a lot of the top financial planners in the United States. So the information is starting to get out there, and then when the study gets published in December, it'll be in magazines all over the place. So we're working hard to help as many people as we can.
I know you do work very hard, and you work intelligently also, something I can't say about myself all the time. But, being unfocused in life is kind of, I think, fun in a way. But I don't know if you're focused on other things, but you're definitely focused on, of course, your three wonderful sons and their careers now, what they're doing through school, the football, the other sports, and their futures. But you're also very, very focused on this, I'll say reverse mortgage, because it will cover both the HECM and the jumbos. I mean, you do a magnificent job.
Thank you.
Well, it's well deserved, and it's not just me saying so, believe me, because I've talked to a lot of other people in the industry, and we all love you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That means a lot. It really does.
Well, you're welcome, but it's well deserved, that's for sure. So, we also will be looking forward to that study being published in December. You also did a study, I think, that was, or part of, or at least you monitored a study done by the American College of Financial Stuff and Fidelity also on roughly somewhat about the same thing, but maybe not as direct.
Fidelity actually did their own independent study on strategy and confirmed all the growth projections and the wealth creation that comes from it. That was something that they did internally. Yeah. And I authored another study called the Boomer Effect a few years ago, which was directed at pre-retirees. And so for the folks that are listening that that are thinking about retirement because it's coming up in a few years. Maybe you're in your, say your 50s at least. And so it's very top of mind. It's kind of your next big goal. Very important that your financial advisor, you get together with your financial advisor and you look at your aging parents' plan around their plan for funding long-term care needs. Because I go back to that number, and this was the premise of that original study published in FA Magazine, was that since 70% of the U.S. population falsely believes that their health insurance will pay for long-term care needs, how is that going to impact everyone else? Well, for a lot of wealth management clients, they might be a first generation wealth management client whose parents never had a wealth manager, never had a financial advisor. Very good chance those parents are under that misconception, and all of a sudden they're going to find out the hard way when the need arrives, and all of a sudden they have to, they have a long-term care need, and then nothing is in place to pay for it. And so what typically happens is they at some point sell their home. They use those funds to pay for care, and even those funds aren't enough. And one of the
they'll run out, right?
One of the things we discussed in one of my other webinars is, rather than going down that path, is something I call the unplanned path, right? Because most Americans, it's interesting. We're not great savers in America. We never have been, but we're really, really good at paying off our homes in retirement. We're exceptionally good at that, and over 80% of us actually achieve that, and well over 90% of people that have a financial advisor achieve that. So what they do, though, is because they haven't planned for long-term care funding, is they reach a point where they need some help, so they hire an in-home care service, and initially a couple hours a week for that service, not very expensive, but as they age, they need more help and more help and more help, and eventually it is more than their budget can handle. So then they sell their home, liquidate that asset, and move into an assisted living facility, which burns through 100% of all that home equity, that nest egg, in 2.5 years.
Wow.
So it's gone at that point. And now how do they pay for the rest of their care? And,
right.
And for most of these people, when they went into retirement, their intention was to pass the home on to their heirs.
And now they can't.
They spent the whole thing on care. Wouldn't it be smarter if early in retirement, they used a reverse mortgage to just extract a little bit of that equity, use that to buy the insurance policy, let the insurance pay for the care needs, and keep the house?
Right.
That's called smart money, right?
Right.
And that's what we do in the planning world is we rarely provide a product to a client that they really need, but we provide products they absolutely can benefit from.
That's
what a reverse mortgage.
I'm gonna use that too, with your permission.
By all means, go ahead.
All right. And let me just preface, I'm just going to have one line to say, but let me preface it by saying that most people think it's the children who oppose the reverse mortgage because, oh no, I'm not going to get the house and I'm not going to get the money. That's not been the case at all.
Nope.
Children usually want their parents to live longer and their parents to live happily.
Right.
So, with that said, this is so much a better way to keep that legacy in place. Because, one thing that the parents may have to do, and the children will be willing to do, because what I said, they want their parents to live longer if they have money, then the children are going to be chipping in and spending their money on the parents, which, is a good way to spend it, but we don't have to do it.
Well, Jay, I think you've been on my long-term care webinar and fund long-term care with home equity. And by the way, these are all exclusively for financial advisors. And so in that, we've done the analysis, and I think we may end up actually that might be one of our next studies that we do, because we did the analysis of retirement with long-term care insurance, and I'm talking specifically about single premium long-term care insurance, not traditional,
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense in this case.
Yeah, single premium long-term care, one premium and you're done. And in the case where they bought the policy and they needed care versus didn't need care versus not buying the policy, need care, don't need care, in both scenarios, the client and the heirs were both better off that they bought the policy, right?
No surprise there.
The heirs end up with more inheritance, whether they needed care or not, because they bought the policy. But for the average American, it's going to take something like a reverse mortgage to help them buy that single premium product.
Sure.
Normally, that's something just the wealthy do.
You know, and even if you have the money to do it, why take it out of your bank account when you can take it out of your ever increasing equity? And I do mean increasing. I know you do all of this worldwide or countrywide. I hate to use the word countrywide. That reminds me of a company once.
Right.
But Ron Siegel, whose show I was on, he mentioned that California increase in property values for the last 61 years has been 5.9%. So as Mad Magazine would have said, what, me worry? No.
Sure. Well, think about this for those of you that are in a jumbo mortgage property in California. A lot of you have seen your property appreciate more than 10% in the past year. So let's just assume that a year ago your property was worth $1 million and now it's $1.1 million, right? You gain $100,000 of equity in 1 year. That 1 year increase in equity could pay for, if it's extracted with a reverse mortgage, could pay for one of these long-term care products that funds, that turns into about almost $500,000, $450,000 typically, worth of care benefit through a policy, right? So now you've got all your long-term care needs covered, and you've still got your home.
Yes.
Yeah. And it only took 1 year of appreciation in your property.
Yeah, and who's going to miss that 0.1? The children? No. The parents? No. They're not going to miss that 0.1%.
Well, I told you, we did the analysis. They're better off whether they need care or not. It's a 70% chance you will. Whether you need care or not, you're better off with the policy. You come out ahead.
Yes, you absolutely do.
Typically. I have to throw in typically.
I know, but, it's rare to find somebody that won't, that really won't. And you can't say this is absolute in all cases because it's just not right to do that. But generally speaking, you are correct. And we only have 1 minute to go, believe it or not. And I appreciate you, and so many others do too, so much. I can't wait to get out and meet you for lunch, coffee, whatever, or even to drive by and wave. And you're doing such a great job talking now. I see you're in your car driving at about 90 miles an hour and still being able to give us this great information. So I really appreciate it.
That's just my thinking. I'm parked, I promise. My Cal Poly football player just moved back in, and I'm delivering his TV to him.
Oh, well, good for you.
Back in college, they started practice today.
No, I could see in the background that you're not moving, so I just threw that in for the fun of it. We got to have some fun left anyway, right?
Absolutely.
But again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much I appreciate you actually doing this when you're doing your other chores and things today. So we got there goes the music like in the academy.